Wah! You can't burn out until you catch fire. Hey there, higher running coach and Hoka athlete Sage Canaday here with another training talk. Today we're going to talk about some of the best workouts I think you could use to improve your Vo2max, including the Norwegian 4x4 method or not, and kind of some variables that you may want to consider when implementing high intensity interval workouts like Vo2max workouts into your overall training structure depending on your body type, your goals, and your training history. Let's get started. So I'm going to start with this very amateur approach and let's ask ChatGPT. Again, I don't usually do this. I don't trust half the things ChatGPT tells me. For me, it's like doing an ill-informed Google search sometimes because it's just going to populate whatever I could find on the internet, which may or may not be the best and may or may not be true. But let's see what chat has to say. What are the best kinds of Vo2max workouts for runners? Question mark. Very good, little summary there. Vo2max is all about, if you think of your body like a car, it's like the horsepower, right? The revving engine power, raw engine power, oxygen delivery to the muscles. Super critical, and this is important for your training emphasis. It's more critical if you're training for a 5K or a 1500 meter or a 3K type of race or, less than 10-minute type of race. But it's also important if you're training for longer events like a half marathon, marathon, or even ultra marathons, especially if you're running up mountains at high altitude. Vo2max is always important for aerobic based activities and endurance sports. So this is actually a pretty solid answer with a lot of good examples of workout types. And I've touched on this over the last 12 years on my YouTube channel here. What are the best kinds of workouts for Vo2max? Well, we're usually looking at around 5K goal pace. Maybe it's 2-mile or 3K race pace. Technically, if you're on a flat track and you've maximized your potential out of 5K, but 800 meter repeats, kilometer repeats, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes in duration at pretty high intensity, right? And if you read Jack Daniels, I was reading Jack Daniels' original distance running formula back in the 2001, circa 2001, we know from Vo2max interval training, generally the rest break in between the hard efforts is a shorter interval. So if I'm doing 3-minute 800 meter repeats, my rest is limited to only about 2 minutes. And maybe I'm doing a light jog or walk. In that time, it's not a complete rest. My heart rate stays elevated. And that's an important thing to distinguish with targeting Vo2max is that we're looking for these big heart rate spikes over 90%, 95% of maximum even, so very hard, high intensity workouts. So chat got this right. They even talk about short hill repeats. Using hills is a great way to do things. 30 to 45 seconds, I'm gonna talk more about that in terms of building musculature and running economy more. But giving a variety of different things, even talking about tempo runs, a 20-minute tempo run a la Jack Daniels, that's gonna be combining a blended workout of 4 times 800 meters intervals after what may be a 20-minute tempo run that's actually slower than 10K to half marathon race pace or intensity. So not a bad summary by ChatGPT. Let's look at the science though. There's a lot of hype around 4x4 minutes, the Norwegian method, Norwegian workout of doing high intensity 4-minute intervals at, some sources might say 85 to 95% max heart rate. I've seen other studies that say, no, it should be closer to 95%, which makes more sense with Vo2max, and then having a limited rest of 2 to 3 minutes in between each hard 4 minutes. Now, if you're doing these on track, maybe you're doing 800 meters, maybe you're doing a kilometer, you're probably not doing mile repeats. An elite could do mile repeats, of course, at 430, 420 per mile, but it's a hard, high intensity workout, and they say, oh, maybe you do it once a week, maybe you do it twice a week. I'm going to say that's going to be effective for a short period of time, and we could bring up the science. Let's look at a scientific study analyzing improvements in runners that weren't totally out of shape, that do 4x4 and do it for maybe a 6 to 8 week type of duration protocol. And yeah, they get big boosts in Vo2max. Big surprise, high intensity interval running improves your Vo2max. But I think, and this is the core of the talk, the most important thing is to put this all in context. Is 4x4 by itself a good workout? Yes. Can you do it once every week or 10 days for a race-specific phase in your training and improve your 5K time? For sure. Can it help with marathon and ultramarathon runners? Definitely. but it targets systems for different reasons, and the Vo2max doesn't just exist in this magical vacuum. It's not just the Vo2max, it's not just the lactate threshold. You could blend these things together and it's all on the spectrum, and that's kind of the important takeaway. Is the first point I want to make is what kind of individual runner are you? What are you dealing with? What are your goals in terms of injury history, but mileage, consistency? Have you been training a lot for years and years? Have you have 5 or 10 years of distance running experience and whittle down those 5K PRs and 10K and half marathon PRs to things that are really hard to marginally improve on? What's your chronological age? Are you in your 20s? Are you in your 40s? How long have you been running, period? And what was your last training block or race? Are you coming off of a massive block of zone 2 aerobic endurance and high volume, high mileage? Or are you just starting up again after being injured or taking a long break for whatever reason? Or are you a true beginner that is barely trained at all? And if you just start doing some sort of structured program and increasing your consistency in running, you're probably going to start improving and smashing your personal best at 5K very quickly. So experience level matters. The type of runner and your type of goal distance, whether you're targeting a 5K or a marathon, really matters, as well as genetic factors, lifestyle factors, diet, sleep, stress, your mental attitude towards training and how you push yourself in running, what running means to you. So all these variables do come into play, even in these scientific studies with improvements in Vo2max, improvements in personal best times, but also relative intensities and types of Vo2max workouts that we might be doing specifically at a certain time in terms of how many reps we might do. Do we do 3 by a kilometer, or are we doing 8 by a kilometer, right? Are we doing more lactate threshold? Because if you're a more advanced runner, maybe your lactate threshold is closer to 88 to 90% of your max heart rate. Whereas if you're a more beginner runner, maybe your lactate threshold's more like 83% of your max heart rate, right? There's a big difference when we do high intensity intervals, even with this Norwegian 4x4 method. And you see in the second study with heart rate data we're looking at when they're performing these 4x4 high intensity intervals, and these could be 3-minute intervals, they could even be up to 5 minutes. We usually don't recommend that for beginners as much. Jack Daniels always said that mile repeats are really hanging out there. Unless you could do them in under 5 flat or around 5 flat, you should probably do kilometer repeats instead, because then you're more in the 3 to 4 minute range if you're pretty fast. If you don't do it that fast, maybe you move down to 800 meter repeats. So what we like to see is a nice progressive heart rate spike. You see these heart rate spikes going up, drifting up over 90% of maximum, realizing a lot of people might not know 100% of their maximum. It's very hard to get. So we have to estimate sometimes. Maybe we play with our 5K pace, 3K, projected 3K race pace. So it could be a 5K goal pace type of scenario if you're on a flat track. If it's windy, if you're not on the track, if you're running uphill, pace goes out the window. We have to go by breathing and effort. You should be breathing very hard. It should be hard to talk more than 2 or 3 words at a time, right? You might want to be saying expletives instead of forming complete sentences, because you are in pain when you do Vo2max workouts, but not so much suffering that your form breaks or that you get flooded with lactate. And this goes back to this study where we see these nice progressive heart rate spikes. Very good, very progressive. That's the kind of data I like to see. That's when your heart rate monitor is reading accurately. I wear a Coros armband strap. I recommend a strap independent from your wrist or a chest strap, but the Coros armband strap compatible with Garmin. That is a sponsored plug. I digress here. Power went down for these athletes. Some of them didn't pace it well, believe it or not. The common mistake, I make it still, even as an experienced runner, is you start out each rep too fast. You do the first rep of the whole workout too fast. So you're running the first 200 meters and then you have to slow down. Your breathing accelerates, your heart rate goes up. You don't want to flood yourself with lactate, because if you're really into Vo2max, you're crossing that lactate threshold and you are developing some acidosis. There is some higher levels of lactate, and you saw that in the lactate data readings. That's not important. The important thing is to focus on the fact that you're not slowing down too much at the end of the workout. It's hard, it's very hard, but you're holding an even pace and you're putting forth an increased effort as you build fatigue over the workout, and as the minutes tick on, over 90% max heart rate, it gets quite intense. You're working hard. These are where the big gains are made, especially if you're a more advanced athlete. And, that's my second point is, experience matters in these things, and the boost to relative Vo2max matters because Vo2max is a moving target. We don't want to think of it as this standalone value where you're always like, oh, my Vo2max is 50, now it's 52, I made this marginal boost and increase. Whether or not that helps your marathon performance, there's a good reason it might not if you're not doing specific long runs and tempo runs and longer workouts in training or consistent high mileage, because the marathon doesn't care about your Vo2max as much as it cares about specific running economy or your efficiency or your pace at lactate threshold. Those are the more important parameters, glycogen sparing, those are the more important parameters for racing a longer distance event like a marathon or ultramarathon. Whereas the 5K, yeah, Vo2max becomes increasingly more important as a parameter for success in running super fast because that's the pace and that's the relative intensity that's very close to actual Vo2max running, right? Velocity or your pace at Vo2max should be slightly faster than 5K pace for most people, but it's very close in terms of mimicking race pace scenarios. And that comes important with, like I said, running economy, your efficiency of movement patterns. So you're building your musculature, you're building power in your stride, in your muscles, the ability, fatigue resistance in the legs to run more and more closer to a sprint, to run faster and faster for longer periods of time and not be flooded with lactate, not be hyperventilating that you have to tie up and slow down in that last mile or those last few kilometers of an all-out 5K race, right? So the intensity matters when we've built an aerobic base and we need to capitalize on our aerobic system, our aerobic base. It's like fine-tuning race-specific phase period and how you implement that in your training with all the variables, like I said, with age, your history, injury considerations. You don't want to go too hard, too fast, too soon and burn out. Like I said, once you catch fire, then you're at the risk of burning out mentally and physically later in the season if you go too hard, too soon with these Vo2max workouts. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a complicated thing. Is 4x4 Norwegian method always the best way to go? I would say no. You don't always want to be doing 1 or 2 Vo2max workouts every week all year long, especially not the same sort of protocol. I repeat workouts in our higher running training plans and coaching at higher running. We repeat workouts. They may be a Vo2max type of workout, and we may repeat the exact same one 4 weeks later to see your progress, but we're usually mixing it up more with different types of stimulus. So maybe 1 week you're doing kilometer repeats, maybe the next week or maybe 10 days later you're doing 600 meter repeats, and maybe the pace isn't that much faster on the shorter intervals, maybe it's slightly faster, but the rest is really short, and we're focusing on building specific running economy or your efficiency of movement because we want to develop power in the stride with your push-off force, with your musculature, stimulating fast twitch muscle fibers, but also spiking the heart rate still. And this goes with 30-second hill sprint repeats or 1 minute hill repeats, right? 10 times 1 minute uphill. We're trying to develop power in the stride, and the added benefit is that you get boosts in your cardiovascular system because you're revving that heart rate up over 90% and you're dealing with increasing levels of lactate in your blood and that buildup of fatigue, but you're taking just enough rest, you're manipulating the rest so that you don't go too anaerobic or flood the system with lactate and have acidosis, and you're able to hold good running form and develop that power and strength without total collapse, right? It's very painful, it's very hard, but you're able to charge up that hill, focus on good form, still get the breathing and heart rate very high, and boost that Vo2max. But it's really boosting your running economy because that's really the name of the game for most distance running events. Vo2max is going to be a moving target. It's going to decline with age. It might even decline as you go from 5K, 10K training to marathon, ultramarathon training because you're trying to extend your speed endurance. And it doesn't matter as much. What matters more is probably your pace at your lactate threshold or at your aerobic threshold. Those are two different things, LT1, LT2. But I digress here. Final plug. I want to talk about this book. Just came out, Running in Circles, by an acquaintance, fellow runner, Jack. He has extensive experience in the sport, but also working with some really big name brands and business. And the key emphasis of the book is how to build some more awareness, how to grow the sport, specifically track and field in the US, but running in general. He's got some great ideas in here on how we could take cues from other sports, especially mainstream sports in the US, like baseball, basketball, hockey, football, soccer, different sports, and how we can increase viewership, not just in coverage, but people watching track meets, how we could formulate. He's got a lot of answers and solutions, basically, creative solutions, I think, in how we could build the sport of running essentially and create excitement and yeah, get more people healthy, enjoying the sport, getting excited about the sport, especially if you follow the pro level and track and field. There's a lot of creative solutions in here that he uses from his business experience, but also just, you know, being a fan of the sport like I am. Wanted to help endorse this. Obviously, this is a plug for him in the book. It's on Amazon. You could check out the link in the description below, but highly recommend it. It's a great read. As I say, a must read for any track and field fan on the cover there. But yeah, really appreciate him for writing this, sharing the story, sharing these creative ideas, because it's a sport that we'd like to see more people get excited about. And this provides some clear-cut pathways for that. So check it out, Running in Circles. Link below on Amazon. That is a plug. Thank you so much for all the subscriptions on here. It's been a journey the last 14, 15 years, however long I've been making training talks on this YouTube channel. Really appreciate your support. Comment below with future training talk topics you would like to hear about. Again, I got some vlogs coming my way. I'm ramping up training, doing some races this summer. More on that later. Title sponsor Hoka, keeping the dream alive. Thanks to all your planned purchases at higherrunning.com. We sell training plans for any service, any distance. Check out Coach Sandy's channel, link to it up there, Running Wild. Thank you again to Patreon support for keeping this YouTube channel alive. Hope you're doing well, and stay tuned for more Vo2max Productions.